ladies and gentlemen, to an all-new reaction and review. Tonight, guys, I'm taking a look at a drama from 1956. That movie is The Conqueror. Now, I'm going to tell you guys, I really don't know a whole lot about this movie. I know two things about it. First off, I know that this movie has one of the oddest casting choices in film history. Because, you see, the movie stars John Wayne. Legendary actor John Wayne. Man who has starred in hundreds of movies, most of which are westerns and war movies, and, you know, he usually plays Americans. So it seems a little odd to cast someone like him as Genghis Khan. It just seems off to cast a white guy as a fucking Mongolian warlord, much less take one of the most popular and famous white actors at the time and cast him as a brutal, evil Mongolian warlord. That just sounds terrible. But hey, who knows? Perhaps maybe John, Wayne is going to pull out, maybe he pulled out something good here. Now, the other bit of trivia I know about this is a little bit more, let's just say, negative and kind of sad, and that is that when this movie was made, it was shot in a desert in Utah that was about 20 miles away from a nuclear test site. And as a result of that, most of the cast and crew died of cancer, including John Wayne. Now, you would think that a little piece of trivia like that would have to be something that a person would have to actively look up. And I did. However, the people who put out this, DVD decided that it'd be a good idea to mention it on the back of the disc. No, I am not kidding. They actually mention the fact that most of the cast and crew contracted cancer because they worked on this movie. That means that they couldn't think of anything else to fucking talk about on the back when they're supposed to be telling you about the plot of the movie. So instead they're like, oh yeah, and almost everybody died of cancer because this was filmed a few miles away from a nuclear test site. I don't know if that to me, guys, just bodes very, very bad for this movie, but hey, who knows? This thing actually could wind up being halfway decent, and the only way I'm going to find out if it is if I shut up and I push play, and I'm going to do that right now. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out The Conqueror. Oh my god. Guys, I understand it's way early in this movie, but this is some of the most stilted dialogue I have ever heard. None of it has any kind of natural flow, yet. It doesn't help the fact that the acting, including from John fucking Wayne, is awful. I'm kind of hoping that this gets better, or perhaps maybe that the horrible dialogue will kind of sort of like grow on me, but so far we are off to a terrible start, guys. Guys, I totally understand the movie is trying to build, up, tension and excitement and everything here, but honestly, guys, this recent fucking raid we just saw was kind of dull. And I honestly am not able to put my finger on why. Perhaps honestly it's because it is a raid where nothing really happened, but really it was kind of a boring scene. I really kind of wish that they would have done a better, job at it, you know what I mean? Guys, now honestly is a good enough time to mention this. As horrible as the dialogue is, and as kind of hammy and somewhat shit the acting is, the sets and the costumes in this movie are fantastic. And also the music is really good too. It's just, and all of that's great, but again, I kind of wish that the writing and the acting were just a little bit better, you know what I mean? Well, guys, I believe I now know what is wrong with this movie. It's that nothing's happened, guys. We are pretty much about like an hour into this movie, and there hasn't been a fucking thing of interest that has happened yet. The story is going nowhere, and really, it's just leading to ultimately a really boring film. I'm really hoping for it to pick up in the, second hour of this thing, but I'm kind of having my doubts at this point. You know, guys, I genuinely thought that I would get used to this unnatural, stilted, terrible dialogue. You know, I genuinely thought that it would just sort of, like grow on me as the movie would go on, but no, it really isn't. This fucking dialogue is still horrifically stilted. I can't wait for this movie to end. All right, guys. Now, do you guys happen to remember when I mentioned a raid earlier in the film was coming off really, really dull? This one here is slightly better. Mind you, it's still really kind of boring, but at least it's far, far better than the one that we saw earlier. So, hey, I mean, it certainly fucking took them long enough to finally, do something kind of sort of interesting, but at least it's kind of interesting. Well, guys, that was The Conqueror. Let me shut that off. Okay. Wow. Where to start? Well, I guess I can start with the writing, even though I've already beaten the writing horse a little bit as I watched the movie. Now I can really go into heavy detail as to the problems with the writing in this movie. I have talked about the stilted dialogue and all that, but really, guys, it goes far, far beyond the dialogue simply being stilted. It also doesn't sound natural. And when I say that, guys, I mean there is no way that any actor would have been able to have given these lines life, because the lines are completely devoid of life. Every single character speaks in the most robotic way possible. So basically, the characters them fucking selves are completely bereft of life. So we have nobody here with any level of personality, because everybody sounds the same, everybody talks the same, everybody acts the same. The only things we have to work with is that Genghis Khan, who, by the way, is never called Genghis Khan till the very end, because this is kind of sort of his rise to becoming Genghis Khan. So he, for the entire film, is known by his given name, which was Temujin. It basically is Temujin pining after a Tartar woman who hates his guts until the third act, when all of a sudden Stockholm Syndrome apparently kicks in, and she suddenly loves him more than life itself, which just seems to come on suddenly. It really does. It just seems to be, I hate him, I hate him, I hate him. He is the greatest human being who ever lived, and I would sacrifice everything for him. It doesn't work. It doesn't sound right. It felt awful. And frankly, I really didn't care about that. And the funniest part is that this whole thing is played up as the big story between those two falling in love. Well, first of all, it's not really love as much as, like I said, it's basically Stockholm Syndrome. But also, that also gets thrown on the back burner about halfway through, and it then just turns into Temujin's rise to power and ultimately becoming Genghis Khan. And you would think that that would be interesting, however, the story goes at such a slow pace that you are not going to care by the time the final battle hits. Now, that is all because of writing, but I also have one other little niggling gripe when it comes to writing. And it is a scene that in the movie is really good. However, it would have been better if it weren't in the movie at all. Allow me to explain. Excuse me. About 40 minutes in, Temujin and his forces go and they visit Wang Khan in his massive, beautiful palace, and all of them are treated to a floor show. It's this beautiful series of dance numbers. It goes on for about 5, maybe 6 minutes, and it looks awesome. It looks beautiful. It really looks amazing. However, dumping that into the movie then takes a movie which is already moving at a ridiculously slow pace and brings it to a dead stop. it totally kills the movie's pace dead, and it then has to pick up from there. And mind you, again, I'm not going to complain about the scene itself. It really would have been great as maybe like a separate like standalone film or something. However, though, just throwing it in here just for the sake of throwing it in, it really did just. It completely flatlined the pacing of this film, and it then had to attempt to recover, and it couldn't do that because the writing was that bad in terms of pacing. So it then took them about another hour plus to finally get us back into a reasonable pace, at which point we were then up to the final battle, which was the one moment in the film when it actually started to get kind of sort of interesting and exciting, and would probably have been even more so if the battle wasn't over in about 4 minutes. I really wish I was joking about that, but the battle is really that short. Anyway, but yeah, guys, like, writing here, if you honestly are able to make it up to that final scene and still care about what's going on, then you are a far better person than me. I could not get to that point and care. At that point, I was looking at the timer at the bottom of my screen, going, all right, good news, there's less than 10 minutes left, I'm happy. That's literally almost the only thing I did throughout the last half of the movie. Is I would get bored and I would then watch the seconds counting down. So, yeah, writing here is not that good. Acting. Now, normally, guys, when I say that the writing is this stilted and this, poor, I normally then am not able to blame acting because you can only do so much with a script which is given to you. And I would happily say that if the cast actually sounded like they read the goddamn script before they stepped in front of the camera. But none of them do. I don't care how stilted and how god-awful the friggin' dialogue is, you would kind of expect these actors to at least attempt to try to put some effort into these lines. But none of them do. Every single actor in the film sounds as if they're reading their lines off of a cue card, and they're reading it for the very first time. Nobody here honestly sounds as if they practiced anything, and they were just there kind of sort of, winging it. And it sounds awful. The acting here is terrible. And I know that the cast here, I know that all of the leads, I know all the major stars know how to act. I've seen them act. I know that John Wayne knows how to act. Well, knew how to act, but still, that's beside the point. But why the hell did he not put in any effort here? I know that John Wayne lobbied heavy to get this fucking role. Why didn't he put any goddamned effort into it? Why would he lobby to play as Genghis Khan in this stupid thing, then show up and put zero fucking effort in? It's absolutely insulting. This is by far the worst performance I've ever seen John Wayne ever give. And part of that has to do with the fact that he doesn't work as Genghis Khan, and that can be easily explained as such, guys. John Wayne has a very natural drawl, and he has this habit of pausing in the middle of words if they have more than one syllable. And that sounds totally fine if you're working on, I don't know, like, let's see here, Alamo, True Grit, Hatari, the fucking, Longest Day, all of those it works fine. But when you have to play as Genghis Khan and you sound as if you crawled out of some gutter in fucking Oklahoma, it doesn't work. Okay? It doesn't. John Wayne is by far the worst choice you could have made to play as Genghis Khan. The very fact that this man, a legendary actor, even back in 1956, couldn't even put in the fucking effort to try after lobbying so fucking hard to get it is nothing shy of disgusting. I'm really sorry if I am, going off on this, but I was expecting better because I know that John Wayne can act. And I know that Susan Hayward can act. I know that Agnes Moorehead can act. Why didn't any of them try in this fucking thing? If all of them knew that the script was this fucking terrible, why the hell did they sign up for it? The paycheck could not have been that big. I don't care if this is from Howard. If this movie was from Howard Hughes, I don't think that he would have been able to have given them enough money to justify showing up and phoning in a bullshit showing on a poorly written shitbag movie. Okay. Wow, I have never been this angered by bad acting in my life, but that's because the cast should have known better. Anyway, the acting is awful. The acting, guys, is not even not even watchable on a, so bad it's good level. The acting here is just pathetic, and oh my god. All right, camera work. The camera work here is really good, as long as, there's a big if here when it comes to camera work, as long as the camera is not panning in close-up shots. Allow me to attempt to explain, because guys, this movie's working on a massive, epic scale, and it sometimes really shows, and it looks really good when we have wide shots. However, though, when we are close up on people, when we're close up on small groups, and the camera has to track somebody, I notice this every single time that the camera would pan in close-up shots. For some reason, the far left side of the screen here, and I don't know if it's because of the lens, I don't know if it's because the DVD was coated weird, I don't know what it is, but the entire left side of the screen, like left edge, like right about here, would all just kind of sort of, like ripple and warp as the camera moved. And it would draw my eye to it as opposed to what's in center frame. And that, guys, is a terrible sign. That is something that you would almost think that they would have, tried to fix, or perhaps maybe try to avoid panning shots, which thankfully they actually do attempt to avoid panning shots as much as possible. I could probably count on one hand the number of times that my eye was immediately drawn to the left side of the screen, because the whole thing decided to warp or ripple as the camera moved. Beyond that, guys, the camera work here is awesome. It is. So, frankly, minus that one, gripe, I really don't have anything else to say when it comes to camera. Sets. The sets here look awesome, and the buildings look beautiful, and the tents look really nice. The camps look cool. But then we look at the background. Now, I am not going to nitpick here, at least not much, but I would not have known that this was filmed in Utah. I also wouldn't have known that it was supposed to be set in fucking, Mongolia, unless the movie told me. No, because it doesn't look like Mongolia, and it doesn't look like Utah. For whatever baffling reason, it looks like Colorado. But guess what? I don't care how you attempt to spin that, it still doesn't look like Mongolia. So my big question is this. You have a movie which is being produced by Howard Hughes, a fucking billionaire. At what point did it not occur to anyone else to just build sound stages to try to make the things look like friggin' Mongolia? I mean, come on, guys. We had a human being who at that time was the richest man on the planet. You couldn't have asked for a couple extra mil. Well, actually, at the time, that would probably have been a little bit much. But still, asked for a little bit extra in order to build, or in order to work on sound stages and make it look a little bit more like Mongolia, instead of having it look as if we're clearly in, again, it looked to me more like Colorado than it did, Utah, but that's just me. That, honestly, guys, is something which just sort of, threw, me off, and it obviously is not going to throw off a whole lot of other people. But still, that is something that is worth mentioning. Lighting here is pretty good, except for one scene, which was a raid that happened at dawn, and they were trying to use the natural sunlight of dawn in order to shoot in order to shoot the scene. The problem with that is that the scene is incredibly dark, and you can barely tell what the hell is going on. You probably wouldn't be able to see anything if it wasn't for the fact that the raiders were setting fire to all of the tents. So, we have that one scene which is very poorly lit. Everything else is lit very, very well, though. So, I honestly am not going to complain much when it comes to lighting. The music here is the music here is beautiful. It's perfect. It really is the kind of thing that you would see, or rather, the kind of thing you would hear in a typical 1950s film. The score here is good, but it ultimately is not very, memorable. So, when all is said and done, am I able to recommend The Conqueror? No. The only way I could possibly recommend this is if you have some kind of morbid curiosity about how John Wayne would do as Genghis Khan. But mind you, that honestly is the only reason why I wanted to watch it, and even I thought that the fucking thing was a waste of an hour and 50 minutes. This movie is not that good. Unless you are a diehard fan of John Wayne and you insist on having to watch everything he has ever been in, then you're not going to want to watch this. That really is the only way any human being would want to sit down and watch this goddamn thing, is if they are a diehard fan of John Wayne and insist on watching every film he has ever been in, at which point you're going to have to watch this at some point. However, for everybody else, do not bother. This movie is terrible. And it is, and it, guys, is terrible on every possible level you could imagine. I mean, or rather, no correction. It honestly is just terrible in terms of writing and acting, and ultimately those are the two most important things when it comes to a movie. Is you have to have decent writing, and you have to have, well, you don't have to have, however, though good acting kind of helps. And when both elements suck, then your movie is destined to suck. It's really kind of a sad thing. Now, The Conqueror came off the Amazon wish list. The person who sent it in, and I made it a point to ask this person multiple times if this is how they wanted to be credited, and they said yes. This goes to Ariel, not a girl. I asked numerous times if that was how he wanted it, and yes, Ariel, not a girl. So, Ariel, not a girl, thank you. I was curious about this thing for a long time, and well, you finally gave me the opportunity to watch it, and well, again, thank you, because shit, I honestly would never have had the, well, I probably wouldn't have had the chance if it wasn't for you. So I do thank you for that. And guys, I want you to go and check out his channel. That is at youtube.com/user/TVB Robotnik Returns. Once more, that is youtube.com/user/TVB Robotnik Returns. Go over there and check out everything he has. And once more, that is Ariel, not a girl. I swear to God, that is how he wanted to be credited, and I am going to honor that. It just seems sort of odd to me, but hey, I am not going to judge. Anyway, guys, with that, we come to the close of another reaction and review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.